Some mysteries refuse to fade, no matter how many winters pass. They live on in whispers, in unanswered questions, in the kind of silence that feels heavier than words. This is one of those stories. December 2011. Bluefield, West Virginia. A small Appalachian town once powered by coal, now struggling to hold on as the mines shut down and jobs disappeared. The hills were cold that winter, the streets quiet under strings of Christmas lights. Families gathered around heaters, children pressed their noses to frosted windows, and the air smelled faintly of pine smoke. But while most of the town prepared for the holidays, two young women were preparing for something else, something that would change the community forever. Their names were Sarah Lane and Emily Carter, both in their 20s, both sworn to serve and protect, both trusted by neighbors who saw them as more than badges. They were daughters, friends, role models, and on the night of December 15th, 2011, they drove into the mountains on an assignment that would be their last. A traffic camera caught their cruiser turning down a narrow gravel road at 11 RPM. That was the final image anyone would ever see of them. After that, silence. No radio calls. No footprints. No cruiser. No trace. And yet, more than a decade later, their families still light candles each December, still tape flyers to telephone poles, still pray for closure. Because two officers don't just vanish. Something happened that night in the shadow of the abandoned Coleridge mine. Sarah Lane was 29 that winter. She was meticulous, organized, the kind of detective who carried a leather-bound notebook everywhere. Fellow deputies called it Lane's Bible. If something needed documenting, Sarah wrote it down. Every date, every address, every lead, more than once, that notebook broke open cases that might have otherwise gone cold. But it wasn't just her work ethic that defined her. To the people of Bluefield, Sarah was also Mary Lane's daughter. The girl who carried groceries for the elderly, who knelt in the pews each Sunday morning, who never forgot where she came from. Emily Carter was different. Just 27, a former Army MP. She had a sharper edge. Tomani. Where Sarah was quiet and methodical, Emily was bold and quick to laugh. She had her father Tom's miner's stubbornness and her mother's resilience. Kids at the high school remembered her coaching basketball. Older folks remembered her helping neighbors shovel snow before dawn shifts. Her fellow deputies said Emily could lighten a tense room with a joke, but when danger came, she was steady as stone. Together, they made an unlikely pair. One steady, one fiery, but both fiercely loyal to their duty and to each other. Around the station, people often said they didn't need radios. A glance between them was enough. On December 15th, their day began like many others. Cold winds rattled the courthouse windows, fluorescent lights hummed, and the office smelled of burnt coffee. Sarah sat at her desk, filling out reports, her pen scratching across the page. Emily leaned over a computer screen, scrolling through dispatch notes, grinning at something on the monitor. Outside, snowflakes drifted against the glass. Torture. Neither woman could have guessed this would be the last ordinary day of their lives. At 6 p.m., just as they were preparing to leave, the phone rang. Lane, Carter, report to my office. The voice belonged to Sheriff Paul Whitaker, a man who had worn the badge for over 25 years. In Bluefield, Whitaker was known as a no-nonsense leader. He didn't waste words, didn't explain his decisions, and didn't tolerate backtalk. He was steady, respected, and feared in equal measure. Sarah and Emily exchanged a glance. A summons at this hour was unusual, and from Whitaker himself, even stranger. They climbed the stairs, the floor creaking beneath their boots, and knocked on the heavy oak door. "Come in," the sheriff's voice said. Inside, the office smelled faintly of tobacco and old paper. A single folder lay on the desk, its cover stamped in red. Whitaker leaned back in his chair, his expression unreadable. "Sit down," he said. The two officers obeyed. Silence stretched. The sheriff tapped the folder once, then looked up. "You two are being assigned a special detail tonight. Confidential. No word of this leaves this room." Sarah shifted uneasily. "What kind of detail, sir?" Whitaker's jaw tightened. "We've had intelligence. An anonymous tip. that the abandoned Coal Ridge mines are being used by cartel traffickers. Storage, possibly transport. Your job is to patrol the area tonight. Quietly, observe and report. No engagement. Emily frowned. Just us? No backup? Yes, Whitaker said flatly. Radios stay on. Check in every hour. If anything looks suspicious, you call. You do not act on your own. You do not go inside the mine. Understood? Sarah glanced at Emily, then back at the sheriff. With respect, sir, why not hand this to state police or the DEA? Whitaker's eyes narrowed. Because the source of this information is sensitive. The fewer people who know, the better. That's all you need to know. The word anonymous stuck in Sarah's mind like a splinter. Anonymous tips could mean anything. And yet, the sheriff's tone made clear there would be no further questions. Understood, Sarah said finally. Emily hesitated, then nodded. Whitaker leaned forward, voice low. You've proven yourselves capable. That's why I chose you. Now prepare. Be at the mine by 10. Dismissed. The women stood, exchanged a brief look, and left the office. The door closed behind them with a heavy click. In the garage, Sarah checked the flashlights twice, tested the spare batteries, and placed her notebook carefully into her jacket pocket. She opened to a fresh page and wrote in neat block letters, December 15th, 2011. Assignment, Coal Ridge Mine. Ordered by Sheriff Whitaker. Instructions, observe only, do not engage. She underlined the words twice. Emily tested the cruiser's radio, adjusted her holster, and muttered, Feels like we're being sent into a ghost story. Sarah didn't smile. Ghost stories usually have warnings. All we've got is a tip from no one. At 9:50 p.m., they rolled out of the lot. The cruiser's headlights cut through the cold, snowy dark. Christmas lights flickered in windows along Main Street as they passed. Families gathered in warm homes, children laughing at holiday cartoons, unaware that two officers were driving toward a place that would soon become the center of a mystery no one could solve. By 10:58, a reflective sign appeared, Coal Ridge. Mine Access Road. Emily slowed, turned the wheel, and guided the cruiser onto the gravel path. The woods swallowed them instantly. Branches arched overhead, and the beams of their headlights bounced against bare trees. Sarah flipped her notebook open one last time. 3-1. Entered Coal Ridge Access Road. She closed the cover, placed it on her lap, and whispered, This doesn't feel right. Emily gripped the wheel tighter. Just an hour of nothing, and we'll be back. Neither of them knew this would be the last time anyone in Bluefield would hear their voices or see their faces. At 11 p.m. on December 15th, 2011, a county traffic camera caught the faint glow of a police cruiser turning onto Coal Ridge's access road. That timestamp, 23 hours, would become the final confirmed record of Officers Sarah Lane and Emily Carter alive. What happened after remains one of West Virginia's enduring mysteries. The women were expected to check in every hour. Midnight came. The dispatcher leaned toward her radio, listening for the usual calm voices, nothing but static. She keyed the mic again. Unit 42, radio check. Static. At 1 a.m., she tried again. Still no response. At 2 a.m., the lines remained dead. By 6 a.m., the radio room was heavy with dread. Officers often had dead zones in the mountains, but Sarah and Emily were disciplined. They never missed scheduled calls. Sheriff Whitaker arrived before dawn, his face drawn. He grabbed the radio himself. Unit 42, Lane, Carter, do you copy? Report immediately. Only the hollow hiss of static replied. By 9 a.m., he summoned his senior deputies into a closed meeting. We've lost contact, Deputy Ross said bluntly. That's 12 hours without a word. Could be a breakdown, Holloway suggested. Cruiser stalled. Battery dead. Whitaker shook his head. A cruiser leaves tracks. Radios don't both fail at once. Something else is happening. Then we call state police, Ross pressed. No, Whitaker snapped. Not yet. This was a confidential assignment. We keep it contained. The deputies exchanged uneasy glances. In normal circumstances, missing officers meant an all-out mobilization, but Whitaker's word was final. That afternoon, Whitaker authorized a discreet search team of 5 deputies. They drove to Coal Ridge, flashlights in hand, pistols holstered, hearts heavy. Snow patched the ground around the mine. The access road was still gravelly, untouched except by their own vehicles. No skid marks, no footprints, no sign of a 2-ton Crown Victoria. Deputy Holloway crouched low, running his glove across the dirt. No tire ruts, not even old ones. At the mine entrance, the timbers sagged and warning signs rattled in the cold wind. Danger. Unstable shafts. The deputies fanned out, checking abandoned outbuildings. Rusted tools, rotting crates, collapsed roofs, nothing. By nightfall, the searchers returned empty-handed. It's like they never came this way, one muttered. Whitaker listened in silence, his jaw tight. We regroup tomorrow. And remember, no word of this outside these walls. But secrets never stay hidden. On December 17th, Mary Lane walked into the sheriff's office. She wore her old winter coat, clutching her purse tight. Her eyes were red from sleepless nights. My daughter hasn't come home in 2 days, she told the deputy at the front desk. She always calls. Always. Tell me what's happened. The deputy stammered. Ma'am, please wait. Before he could finish, another figure entered. Tom Carter, Emily's father, 61 years old, shoulders broad from decades underground, coal dust still in the lines of his hands. He removed his cap, his jaw hard. My daughter's gone too. No calls, no word. Don't tell me this is a coincidence. Moments later, both were in Whitaker's office. Sorry. The sheriff stood behind his desk, the red-stamped folder unopened beside him. Mrs. Lane, Mr. Carter, he began carefully. Your daughters are on a special detail. We've lost temporary contact, but we are searching. Temporary? Mary's voice cracked. Sheriff, Sarah has never missed a call home. Not once. If she were delayed, she'd send word. And now you tell me this is normal? Tom slammed his fist on the chair's arm. You sent them to that mine, didn't you? I worked those shafts. They eat men alive. Tell me where she was. Whitaker's expression didn't flinch. I can't discuss details. The assignment is confidential. Tom leaned forward, eyes burning. That's my child. You think I care about your stamps and secrets. Tell me the truth. Mary's tears fell silently. Kukuri, please, I just need to know she's safe. But Whitaker only said, we're doing everything we can. They left with no answers, only suspicion. And as they walked out, deputies avoided their eyes. Everyone felt the same unspoken truth. 2 women were gone, and no one was telling the whole story. By Christmas Eve, the town was alive with rumor. At the diner, people whispered over coffee cups. 2 cops missing. At church, prayers slipped into sermons. On Main Street, neighbors asked in hushed tones, why hasn't there been a public search? At first, Whitaker contained it. But by New Year's, the story leaked to regional papers. A tiny column appeared. 2 county officers unaccounted for. Investigation ongoing. Just a few lines. No details. But enough to confirm what the town already feared. For Mary, the holiday was unbearable. She lit a single candle in the grocery window, whispering Sarah's name. For Tom, the silence was worse than grief. Each morning, he stared toward the mountains, convinced the answers lay hidden in Coal Ridge. The year turned, but no progress came. Deputies combed the mine again, this time with state investigators reluctantly brought in after weeks of pressure. Still, no cruiser, no bodies, no trace. By February, the case was classified as ongoing, then quietly marked unsolved. The file thickened with transcripts and reports, but nothing new was added. Mary came to the station weekly, asking the same question. Any word? The deputies lowered their eyes. Nothing yet. Tom refused to stay idle. He gathered old miner friends, ropes and lanterns in hand, ready to enter the mine themselves. Deputies stopped them at the gate. "Unsafe," they said. Tom spat in the dirt. "If you won't go, we will." But he never made it inside. By the second anniversary, the case felt like a ghost itself. New deputies arrived, unfamiliar with Sarah or Emily. The file gathered dust in storage. Mary's flyers curled and yellowed on telephone poles. She reprinted them, her hands trembling, but fewer people stopped to read. At church, friends hugged her, but some whispered, "She needs to let go." Tom grew bitter. He drove to hospitals in neighboring counties, asking if any unidentified patients had come in around December 2011. Each time, the answer was no. His health began to fail, lungs scarred from years of coal dust. Yet still, he muttered, "She's out there. I'll find her." Bluefield moved on. Stores closed, reopened, closed again. Kids whispered the story at sleepovers. 2 cops drove into Coal Ridge and never came back. It became less a case, more a legend. But for the families, it was no legend. It was a wound that never healed. By 2014, the case of officers Sarah Lane and Emily Carter was slipping into silence. The sheriff's office grew busier with new crimes, deputies rotated out, and the file set gathering dust. For many in Bluefield, it seemed the mystery would simply fade into the Appalachian fog. Then came the first break. In April, a construction crew clearing brush for a new logging road near Coal Ridge struck something metallic. A worker pulled from the mud a rusted 2-way radio, its casing dented, its antenna bent. He almost tossed it aside. Until he saw the faded label, Mercer County Sheriff's Department. Forensics confirmed it. The serial number matched the radio issued to Sarah Lane. The discovery electrified the families. Mary Lane clutched the report like a lifeline. "It means she was there," she whispered. Tom Carter's hands shook as he said, "Finally, proof." But the relief was fleeting. The radio had been exposed to rain and frost too long. No fingerprints. No usable DNA. It told only part of the story. The women reached the mine. What happened next remained hidden. Deputies combed the area again, digging, scanning, calling. Nothing else surfaced. By summer, the excitement faded, the search pulled back, and the file returned to the shelf. For Mary and Tom, the radio was both a gift and a curse. A glimpse of truth without closure. 5 more years passed. By 2019, a new investigator, Lieutenant Andrea Kim, took over the cold case. She pushed for modern tools. Ground-penetrating radar, drones, digital mapping. Her team scoured sealed sections of the mine. One day, while analyzing soil layers, they uncovered faint impressions beneath hardened dirt. When mapped and compared, the patterns matched Goodyear tires used on Ford Crown Victoria police cruisers. The very models Sarah and Emily had driven, Andrea presented the findings cautiously. The impressions are old, degraded, but they're consistent with a police vehicle. For the families, hope flared again. "That's their car," Tom insisted. They made it inside. The sheriff's office authorized a deeper probe. Specialists entered the tunnels with cameras and scanners. They found collapsed beams, flooded shafts, rusting equipment. But no cruiser, no bodies, no conclusive evidence. Experts warned that the tire analysis wasn't definitive. Without more, it couldn't prove the cruiser had ever been there. Hope had risen once more, only to collapse under the weight of uncertainty. Mary folded the report carefully, placing it in her Bible beside the 2014 radio findings. She whispered, "It says they were there, but why won't anyone tell us the rest?" Tom grew restless, bitter. He returned to the mine with old miner friends, carrying lanterns and ropes. Deputies pulled them back, citing safety. Tom spat into the dirt. "If the law won't look, we will." But like before, the mountain stayed silent. By 2021, the 10th anniversary loomed. Then a rumor sparked across town like wildfire. During a routine safety inspection, state technicians using sonar in a flooded mine chamber detected a large object at the bottom. "Looks like a car," one whispered. Within days, the diner buzzed. They found the cruiser. Neighbors offered condolences to Mary. Tom said through clenched teeth, "If they found a car, I'll go down there myself." The sheriff's office refused comment. The state issued only a vague statement. A submerged object has been detected. Investigation ongoing. Divers were deployed under heavy security. Reporters flocked to Bluefield, but the site was barricaded. Families begged for answers. Weeks passed. Finally, in December, almost exactly 10 years to the day of the disappearance, the state issued its conclusion. The object was indeed a vehicle, but not a patrol car. An abandoned civilian car, dumped illegally in the 1990s. No connection to the missing officers. No photos were released. No dive logs made public. Just a brief press statement. Mary wept. Every time they say it's nothing, it feels like losing her all over again. Tom slammed his porch railing. Convenient, isn't it? 10 years later, they find a car, and suddenly it's just junk. They think we're fools. Suspicion rippled through town. Was it truly an old civilian car? Or had the truth been buried deeper than the mine itself? Time does not heal wounds like these. It hardens them. By 2022, Mary's grocery store had grown quieter. She taped a fading flyer near the register, even though most locals already knew the faces by heart. Each December, she lit a candle in her window, whispering Sarah's name. For Tom, the years proved too heavy. His health, long scarred by coal dust, collapsed. In late 2022, he passed away, his final words calling for the daughter he never found. At his funeral, miners bowed their heads, deputies removed their hats, and Mary held Emily's photo as though it were her own child. Bluefield moved on. Kids grew up, shops closed, reopened, closed again. The case became a ghost story told at sleepovers. 2 lady cops drove into Coal Ridge and never came back. For many, it was folklore. For the families, it was an open wound. In 2023, a young journalist tried to revive interest with an article titled, "The Bluefield Mystery, 2 Officers Lost to the Mountain." It trended online briefly, sparking theories and comments. Within days, attention faded again. By 2024, 13 years after that December night, the case was practically forgotten in the sheriff's office. A rookie once asked, holding the dusty folder, "What's this?" A senior deputy shrugged. "Old cold case. Don't lose sleep over it." But Mary still remembered. Her hands shook now. Her steps were slower, but she still printed flyers each December. Neighbors told her gently, "It's been too long." She shook her head. Rest comes when Sarah comes home. There is one detail that haunts everyone who studies the case: Sarah Lane's notebook. She began it the night they left, writing, December 15th, 2011. Assignment, Coal Ridge Mine, ordered by Sheriff Whitaker. Instructions, observe only, do not engage. That notebook was never found. Not in her desk, her locker, her home. If it still exists, buried in the mine, hidden in some drawer, it may hold the answers: a name, a license plate, a last observation. Did Sarah see something in the shadows? Did Emily sense, as she gripped the wheel, that the mountain wouldn't let them go? We may never know. And yet, beyond the mystery lies a deeper truth. Sarah and Emily lived. They laughed in diners. They served their neighbors. They wore the badge with pride. They were daughters of Appalachia, women of courage, women of faith. Their family's pain reminds us that behind every cold case are people who pray, who light candles, who refuse to stop hoping. Faith does not erase the silence, but it gives strength to endure it. Perhaps one day, a hiker or a miner's tool will strike something buried. A badge, a cruiser, a notebook. Perhaps one day the mountain will give up its secret. Until then, the question remains, echoing across the ridges: what happened to Officers Sarah Lane and Emily Carter on that cold December night? If this story touched you, please like this video and subscribe to Silent Traces. Together, we can keep their memory alive. And maybe one day, bring the truth into the light.